Guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a little hurting one. Just because we're going to talk about the eyeshadow palettes that I wish I had. I still miss these palettes. By no means am I saying that you need it, absolutely, and so do I absolutely do not need it, but I still drool over these palettes whenever I see these pictures popping up or whenever I see people like using them, because some of them are like completely out and gone. They were very limited edition palettes, so I really miss them. So I felt like I need to talk to you guys about it, and you guys can share it in the comment section below how you guys feel about these palettes. I have 7 palettes to mention today, so if you're ready, let's begin. The whole palette that actually started this like idea for sharing these palettes was the Kaleidos Club Nebula palette. Now, when this palette came, obviously I was very drawn to it. The second reason is Angela created this palette with Kaleidos. At that point of time, I was not so much into colors, and I felt like the pop of like blue, and I'll pop a picture on the screen for you guys so that you guys can like see the picture also. When I saw like that pop of blue and green and those reds, I feel like I'm not gonna use it. But if it is me today, I feel like these are all wearable tones that I could use it. Like if I just cover those like baby blue and the green, that like electric green that pops out, I feel like rest everything I would have used it. I really hope that Kaleidos does their magic and just get the inspiration out of that palette and create something like really good, or any brand. Like I feel like this Odens I can do too. Odens I, if you're listening to me, I doubt. But if you're listening to me, create something inspired by Club Nebula palette, because I would really love it and I will grab it for sure. I really feel that I missed on it. I still drool over the palette. I can really like look at that color story. Do I have this color story with me? I'm sure I do. I'm sure with the number of palettes that I have in my collection, I can definitely curate it. But again, when all these colors are there together, it's so convenient. Am I being like a little, greedy over this? Yes, for sure, because I really feel that I can do it. And do you guys want to see like looks inspired by the palette that have already like gone, like which were like super limited edition? You cannot find it anymore. If you are willing to do it, I'll create like looks inspired by the palettes that have like absolutely gone out of our lives and we cannot find it anymore and you're craving. I'm up for the challenge, and I can do looks inspired by Club Nebula palette. I really want to, and I feel like the thing that hurts me the most, I feel, are the purples and the salmony shades that are inside that palette, because I feel like the shimmers, that was another thing. I felt like at that point of time, I was looking for like shimmers that were impactful, that were like crazy, duochrome, multichrome, but this was like all toppery shades, because now I can appreciate it too. I really can appreciate, because I feel like that just completes like any look. You can put like a toppery shade on top of any matte and that can transform a look, but you cannot do that with like a thick opaque shimmer. I really feel that this was like a missed opportunity from my side, that I did not grab this. Like, am I regretting? Absolutely, I am. Let's move on to the next one, because I can talk about this Club Nebula palette for hours and hours and not get tired of it. You might get tired of it. I will not get tired talking about it. The second palette that I have to talk about is the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz palette. Now, this is not a limited edition palette. I still can grab it if I can. The only reason why I did not grab this initially was just because it's a very monotonous color story for like a $70 palette. When I'm like spending $70, I really want variety, like the Club Nebula palette, because it had a lot of variety. Here, I only can see like mauves and like baby pink tones. And I recently did actually a Temu haul. Let me show you. And I feel like these palettes are the one that can be easily knocked off too. I did a Temu haul, and this was like a inspired, like Huda Beauty inspired palette, right? But this is not the Rose Quartz palette. This was like the New Nude palette inspired. But I feel like people can definitely like do the knockoffs. And the standout shades were mauves, and I have Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette, and I feel like I can definitely get the mauves out of it. I also have Natasha Denona Retro palette, which also has mauves inspired. I'm a big mauve person, and I'm pretty sure I can like get all these mauvey tones out of my palette collection. That's the only reason why I did not buy it. Will I love having this in my collection? Absolutely, because I love Huda Beauty Palette's formula. But am I willing to spend $70 on that palette? I still am not sure of. Just because I feel like those shimmery tones, like the outer space galactic shimmers that are included in this palette, I feel like I have enough multichromes and duochromes and those like shimmery shades in my collection that I can easily dupe it. So I'm not like missing it, but would I love it? Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This one is a newer one. This one was released this year itself, and I'm talking about the Cosmic Brushes Muse palette. The only reason why this is not in my collection is just because of the greens. I do not wear a lot of greens. I'm mainly like, I rock this look. I just went out to the church in the morning, and this is the look that I wore. And in everyday life, if you catch me, you'll basically catch me in these tones or like purpley tones or like mauvey tones. Like, that's Smithy for you. Like, if I'm dipping into color, that might be like burgundy, but you'll hardly see me rocking a green or a blue or a red in the outside world. Red, I might still. Like, I don't feel like intimidated by a red as much as I feel like intimidated when I'm wearing greens or blues. As soon as I'm wearing greens and blues and like stepping out for like shopping or anything, it's just me in my head. I feel like 10 people are looking at me, and I do not like that feeling. Is anybody looking at me now? But I just have that feeling like I'm looking weird, I'm looking like out of place, like people are staring at me. It's just all in my head, and I like to be just like free in my thoughts when I'm walking around. So I felt like if I'm like dipping into this palette, and if I'm getting this palette, I love the burgundy side, I love the purpley tones that are inside it, but it also has a lot of mustard and a lot of variation of greens. Again, if you're a green wearer, I feel like this is absolutely beautiful, and I really cannot wait to see what Cosmic Brushes does next. If it's like something wearable and like unique, I really want to try this brand, because I feel like I'm gonna love this. I really get the vibes of like glam light when I see this brand. I cannot wait to see what it is there, what's coming in their brand. Am I missing it? Yeah, I feel like I am. Because there are certain palettes that I really like want in my collection, because I'm a lover of makeup. I really love doing like colorful looks and rocking those looks for you guys. If I can be like cool as I am when I'm like rocking these looks for you, I love it. But I'm so much like in my zone only when I'm like wearing those purples or burgundies or mauves or like bronzy tones, the way that I'm wearing today. But would I like it? Yes, for sure. That duochrome, that brown to green flip, I feel like that's like a blue brown pigment that generally everybody did in there when duochromes like was invented. But otherwise, I feel like it's a beautiful palette. Do I need it? No. Will I love it? Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the next palette. Now, this is the palette that actually, I feel like I would love to have this in my collection. This is Pat McGrath's Heutopian Dream palette. Like, this was the 9th palette. Obviously, there was like the 10th palette that was released. That was Moonlit Seduction, I think. But this palette's color story really does speak to me, and I feel like it's because of that sparkly purple. Like, if I take that purple away, like the last 2 shades away, that pink and that purple sparkly shade, I feel like then it's like a mauve color story, which I have over and over on in my collection. But I feel like with the addition of that sparkly purple and that coral shade, like the coral matte, I feel like this is like my perfect Pat McGrath palette. And I only own like the big mothership number 5, which is the Bronze Seduction palette, which I absolutely love. But these palettes are super expensive. Like, for $125, am I willing to buy another palette with the shades that I have? No. Like, can I find these like sparkly, shimmery shades from like Luxy Beauty, from Pretties for Your Face, from Kaleidos, from Terra Moons. Yes, absolutely. Like, do I need to go out and buy? Like, that's how like I tell myself that I do not need it, but I still feel like this is like one of the best Pat McGrath palettes that she's ever made, and for that reason I really want it. Okay, the next palette, this might just land up in my collection this year when it goes out on a sale or something like that, because I feel like this is very, very beautiful. Again, do I wear these tones? No. That's the only reason why am I not buying it at a full price. And this is the Nomads, the Royale Europe palette, which was recently released. And I feel like why I did not like jump the gun and run out and buy it immediately was just because the multichrome shade row, I love that they did this. I really, really love that they did this and they're going in this direction. I love the multichrome row that they included, but I feel like I have all of the multichromes that was included in that palette with me, just because I am a big multichrome fanatic. If you do not have multichromes and if you really want to test out the multichromes, I feel like this palette is beautiful. Again, I personally feel like I will stick to the last two rows where the purples and the burgundies are. Like the blues and the greens, I would hardly wear blues and greens. So the two columns are completely gone out of my way. First column I will wear because it's like a neutral column. But again, do I have these shades? Absolutely. Did I dupe this palette with the palette that I already have in my collection? Yes, I did. And I feel like I achieved like very, very similar looks. I actually wore a look inspired by the Royale Europe palette out when I was like going to Kohl's. Whenever I was walking and I was like catching myself in like a mirror, I was like, oh no, you've done so much on your eyes. Like I was getting so bothered by it. Like I don't know, it's just all in my head. I know that, but I feel like I don't feel myself when I'm wearing like 10,000 shadows on my eyes. Like I don't know. So for that reason, if I'm not like comfortable wearing this color story, I don't feel like that I should buy it. That's how I like just stalked myself away from this palette. But I feel like if you are a lover of color and if you love jewel tones and if you love multichromes, you would absolutely love this palette. Like absolutely, no doubt about it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I don't even have any excuse. Actually, I do. The next palette that I'm going to talk about is Glaminatrix Nearly Neutral palette. I know that I'm going to love this palette. I absolutely know that I'm going to love this palette. The moment I like see this palette, I really want it, just because again, you know I love my mauves and my pinky browns. Those are the shades that will get utilized in my collection. I know that. And if I have the chance to pick this up, I will pick this up. The shipping is so crazy. They're an Australian brand. So I can imagine like when they're shipping the palettes from Australia to America, it's gonna be super crazy. So I am like looking out for palettes like that I can like stack one on top of each other, and then I can get the Nearly Neutrals palette along with it, because I feel like I'm gonna go nuts over this palette because I love the color story. I feel like you can definitely go mauve tones. You can definitely go like more green also, but like a grungy green, like a wearable grungy green. So I would love that too. You have like coppery tones, some beautiful shimmers. It's just stunning. Like when I look at it, I feel like this is how Natasha Denona Glam should have been. Like this would, because there's so much of variety too, even though it's like a neutral cool tone color story, I feel like there's so much of variety in it. I love this palette. I wish they would never discontinue this, because I really do have a lot of neutral palettes, but I still feel like this would stand out. Like I love looking at that palette, and I really want to get this palette in my collection anytime soon. Like really I'm looking for it. And if you do have Nearly Neutral palette, you guys need to let me know like how much you're enjoying it, if you're using as much as I am like thinking, or is it like, you know, I do have a lot of palettes that would look similar to that palette. You guys have to let me know. But let's move on to the next palette. This palette makes me sad that I missed it. And this is the Odens Eye, the Christmas Eve palette. The moment that they like revealed this palette, I was all into it. And I thought I'll get it for sure. And when I saw like the theme was like blue and green and mustard, and I was like, Smithy, will you wear it? Now if I ask myself, even though it's like blues and greens, I feel like it's all wearable blues and greens and I would rock this. I'm so sad and angry with myself that I let it go because it just came and it went so quickly. I didn't even have the time to like think and like process the palette in my head, just because I felt like this was like, it came and it went like in like a day and people were all over it. And I love Odens eye formula. Like I cannot wait to see what they have coming for this holiday season, but I just love everything that they create because the shadows are so blendable, the shimmers are so dimensional. I feel like they do absolutely lovely color story. So I do not doubt that at all from Odens eye. I really wish that they could have got this back. Like I really wish that. Like those tones are so magical. I love it. I don't miss the Merry Christmas palette as much because that's like a warm tone color story and it's like pretty common in my collection. But I would say like the Christmas Eve palette would have been like special. Yeah, I do miss that. That were the 7 palettes that I really miss in my collection, and I would love to get this back in my collection if they can bring it back. But yes, do you have any palettes that you like still dream about, or are you thinking that am I crazy? I don't think you'll think like that, right? But I really wish, like I have dreamt about Club Nebula palette. Like I can say that guaranteed. I've dreamt about Club Nebula palette coming in my collection and that I'm like losing it. And I still didn't get it. Like I just blame myself for that. But yes, that's all for today, guys. You guys have to let me know in the comment section below, what is that one palette that you wish that you had it in your collection and you let it go and now you cannot find it anymore. But that's all for today. If you do like chatting about like eyeshadow palettes, this channel is all about eyeshadow palettes, I would say. Like I do a lot of other makeup too, but eyeshadow palettes are my weakness. So yeah, it's very difficult for me to stay away from them, so I'll at least talk about them. But that's all for today, guys. If you did like it, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.